Andria Bieber, and I'm here with you today on artbeads.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful bracelet. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to ask. I'm excited to see what your comments are. I can only view your comments though on artbeads.com. If you're with us today on YouTube or on Facebook, I won't be able to view them or respond. So if you would like to join me on artbeads.com, I can work with you and answer any questions you might have. Also, any links for today's items in the product will be at the bottom of the screen, as well as a white banner will be featuring details on the different glass beads, the ribbon, and findings that are on today's bracelet. So some items are limited. You want to make sure to grab them before they're sold out. And if they are currently sold out, just drop an email to artbeads.com and find out if you can get on a wait list. So again, thank you so much for being here today. The last two shows, I had a slight audio problem. So for today, I just kind of wanted to experiment by leaving my camera this direction and not flipping it around too much to make sure I didn't have any pausing that just kind of started on its own like last time. So thanks so much for joining me today, and I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet. It's a really pretty multi-strand bracelet with a silk ribbon along with various check glass, and I just love this kind of ribbon. It's a really pretty ribbon. It's edged on the sides, and this has like different colors mixed in with the ribbon. And what inspired me as I saw it online, and I just love the colors, I thought it was really pretty for summer. And if you do want to work with ribbon, and maybe this isn't the color for you, let's say, you can use this idea for other types of ribbon. So there are other colors in the store. And what I did is I saw this and I thought, I want to match this with glass beads to create a bracelet with it. So for me, I was looking at the color of the edging, the detail of the inside colors of the ribbon, and I thought, how can I match this to glass? So that is something you can incorporate with styling for any jewelry, is maybe what is my favorite color in the ribbon, or what colors do I want to pop out more? Let's say you really like a pink or a green. You can buy a ribbon and you can decide what colors you want to bring out in it and then combine that with mixed gemstones or check glass. So honestly, this piece of ribbon inspired today's bracelet. So after I saw this online, I thought this would be so great with a sundress or shorts, or really any time of year if you want to have something colorful with a muted tone as well. It's not overly bright. And I thought, okay, how can I mix this together? So then I went online and I started going through different type of glass colors that would match the different colors within the ribbon. And I thought, okay, what do I want to bring out? Well, for example, this is a really pretty purple. It's kind of an amethyst color. So I thought I'll look for glass that would match that type of color, as well as there's a really pretty blue on the edge. So when I'm designing something, I like to kind of figure out what colors I'm working with, what kind of color palette. Is it cool? Is it a warm color palette? And what do I want my piece to say as I'm wearing it? So I wanted to pick out a certain kind of glass for the shapes, for the design, as well as the colors, as well as I really like flowers and it's summery. So I thought those colors to me remind me of summer. So I want to look for flowers or a faceted bead that has a little bit of sparkle, but is also kind of muted, which is kind of matches the color scheme of the ribbon. So everything ties in together with a muted but colorful look with just a little bit of sparkle without it like being too much. And so like I thought this bead was really pretty. And for example, this bead has a really cool translucent blue color, which matches perfectly with this part of the ribbon as well as the edging. So when I'm picking out beads, I kind of want to have everything work together to create an overall style as well as color scheme. So in addition to that, I love this clasp. It has a beautiful floral detail, and I thought it would go great with the floral beads that I've incorporated also with the ribbon. And so it has like an overall garden look and vibe. So again, I think it's really colorful and pretty for the upcoming summer season, as well as the fall, and everything kind of ties in together with different flower shaped glass beads, as well as the flower detail on the clasp. So I'll be covering the ribbon at the end. That one has its own way of measurement and finishing up with the wired portion of the bracelet. And that one I usually leave at the end because you'll tie it on last after you do the bead work. And then I also have these fun flower details as a little bit of a dangle on the wrist as well. And I add those at the very end. So for starters, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bead these 2 strands, and I've mixed up different colors, again, of check glass that complement the ribbon, and I just kind of mixed up a pattern on each strand, but the pattern is a variegated color to also match the pattern of the ribbon. So when I was holding it down, for example, I went from purple to pink to orange to red to green. So for this, I also did purple to orange to blue to green to purple, and then to pink. So that way the colors of the glass complement the colors of the ribbon in the same pattern. So I thought that was a fun detail to add. And each strand has its own color combination of like going from purple to the coral pink to the green to the pink to the green to the blue. So that way it all kind of resonates together, but also when it's on your wrist, they're not lined up in a matching pattern. So like the beads don't necessarily line up side by side. So you have a really cool texture palette on your wrist, but they're also the same type of color blend, which matches the ribbon. So everything ties in together. And I'm using 2 strands of Bead-A-Lon 49 or 7 strand wire. I'm using the 0.018 inches. And for myself, I like to use a wire guard and a crimp cover. Now, if you're already a master at crimping, you don't have to worry about this part. I did kind of work ahead on 1 strand, but just in case, I demonstrate crimping in case you aren't a crimping master and you would like to watch how it's done again. Because crimping in itself can sometimes take a few times to get. I just go ahead and slide on my crimp. I'm using a number 1 Bead-A-Lon crimp and a bronze wire guard. And these are on the list of items that you can purchase during the live as well. And how I use a wire guard is I slide one side up through the wire guard and I curve my wire around and back through the other side of the wire guard like so, and then back through the crimp. And then when you're working with your wire guard, you just kind of want to pull your wire through and you want to snip your ends together just gently so they're not quite touching, but they're close together like so. And then you also want to leave a small gap between the base of your wire guard and the crimp. That way your crimping tool will go in there and will fit without pinching down the base of the wire guard, because you don't want to pinch those and break them or anything. And I'm going to go and get my tool here. I kind of need to hold it to myself while I'm doing that. So I get my crimping tool in there and I'm going to crimp down and pull that wire down all the way and then flip it around. And I'm using the Bead-A-Lon crimping tool. And when you're crimping, you kind of want to pinch it again and make this really cool like hamburger look. It's like the 2 ends are kind of pinched together, almost like a book. And then I cut off excess wire. And then I add, not too far down, but enough to where your wire won't poke out. And then I add a crimp cover. I really like crimp covers because it just gives it more of a finished look, and it also hides the crimp. And also, if it is raw on the edges for any reason, it won't like scratch you or anything. And here we go. And I use chain pliers myself to kind of crimp my cover down. I just kind of rotate it around a circle and just kind of pinch it down like so. And then you have a nice flush end there, and it still has its round look. Okay, So the other thing I should have mentioned too is before you cut your wire is you want to make sure you know how long you're looking for. So if you want like an 8-inch bracelet, I cut 10 inches of wire. That way I have extra to fold over for the crimping and everything on each end, and then you have a little bit extra for your bead work as well as holding it in your hand when you're finishing up and you're going to add your crimp, because I find if you don't have enough wire, it's really hard to fold everything over and crimp down with your beads, like right here, for example. So you want to make sure you have enough room to maneuver your wire and beads around. So I have both my strands ready to go. And the pattern on this bracelet is I have them each separated with the daisy brass spacer bead. I love daisy beads. I think they're so much fun to separate your beads. Again, it gives it a nice little floral texture and it just kind of breaks up the pattern a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and start with a daisy bead. And the first strand, I'm doing a pink series. So I'm going to start with the pink melon bead and a daisy bead and the pink flower. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. It's so great to see everybody. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Tuesday. And I'm using this fun fire polish bead next. So this fire polish bead is also really pretty. It's faceted with like a really nice rose quartz pink color almost. And the next one I'm using is this lavender rondelle. I like how the pink kind of transitions to this light lavender color. They just seem to go really well on like the color wheel. So to me, it's a good transition color. So you can go from pink and then work your way up to the green. And I'm doing another daisy bead. And then what I wanted to do was add some bellflowers. And so the bellflower colors also match the ribbon really well. The ribbon has a hint of a coral color. And I found these bellflowers, they have the exact same coral color in the ribbon. And so I thought that would match perfect. And then I'm also using this lavender pink color. So that way both colors tie in to the glass beads as well as the ribbon. And they're also add a little different splash of color to the project. And for my bellflower, I'm adding a pumpkin type of brass spacer bead. I'm calling it a pumpkin because it will kind of nestle in between the little ridges here of the flower bead and kind of give it a flat ending. That way you can add more beads onto it and they don't want to get stuck weird inside of the bellflower. And next I'm going to go ahead and add the purple bead here. And I love this one. Again, it's a really nice faucet in the center of the bead with a really pretty purple translucent color. And as you're working, you'll see the colors pop out of the bracelet, and how they tie in with the ribbon is so pretty. Next, I'm using this really pretty green faceted check glass bead. I love it. I just saw it for this project. It has like blues and browns in the edges as well as this really pretty like lime green color in the middle. And I thought that green is perfect for summer. And with each bead, I'm separating them out with the brass daisy spacer bead. Now, if you don't want to separate your beads like that, that's fine, or you can use like a Toho glass seed bead. I do that as well to separate out my beads. I like to separate out the beads with a spacer bead. I think it just kind of adds a little bit more texture to the overall bracelet piece. And so now I'm transitioning from the purples to greens and into the blues. And the reason why, again, I use this green faceted one is because the edging color helps tie in the purple and then going from green to this green. So that way you have kind of a fluidity of color changing as you add the beads. I'm trying to basically make a color wheel out of the glass. And again, I'm using like a floral bead cap and adding the bellflower bead. And on this one, I have the purple bellflower, and then I'm going to the coral flower. That way I have both colors on one strand that will color coordinate with the ribbon. So as you're wearing the bracelet and it rotates on your wrist, you can have the different colors come out with your outfits. And then I'm also adding this purple sunflower glass, and down here I have a pink glass bead. Kind of hold that up. So that way you have a really pretty like lavender purple shade, as well as the pink and the blue flower. So that way you kind of like you have a garden on your wrist. And for this particular strand, I'm finished. This is for a 7.5-inch bracelet. So if you are making a larger bracelet or a smaller bracelet, you'll change the pattern according to how long you want your bracelet. And I'll post directions on the actual pattern I used for the glass. So that way, if you want to duplicate it, you have the glass pattern typed out for you. So this strand is finished. And I'm going to go ahead and crimp this end. That was not a crimp bead, that was a seed bead. And again, I just add my number 1 crimp and my crimp cover and slide my wire around and back through the crimp and pull this down. Now, when you're crimping the other side, when you have beads on, it can sometimes be a little tricky. You want to make sure your crimp and everything is pulled tight enough to where when your bracelet moves, you don't have a chunk of wire that's too long on one end. You also have to have a small gap of wire before you crimp down, and you want to make sure that you can fold your bracelet in half comfortably on your wrist, because sometimes the spacer beads will take up extra space, or the glass shape, they'll kind of run into each other. And you don't want to have your bracelet when you crimp come out like too stiff so it won't rotate around your wrist. You want to make sure you can fold it around your wrist comfortably. So you want to have a small gap from the end of your crimp before you have the spacer bead on here. And you want to make sure you have enough space to also have your tool in there and your crimp cover without taking the extra space that you need for the glass beads. So I have probably a couple millimeters in there, and that's enough. If I push my beads up, then I have enough space to fold this around into a bracelet. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here with my crimp tool and crimp it down. And again, I have a small gap underneath my crimp bead and my wire guard. And I'm going to go ahead and snip off my excess wire. And you can see I still have a little bit of space here for my crimp cover, as well as my spacer bead and my bracelet to still fold in half. And I'm going to get my crimp cover. And I'm going to fold it here over my crimp and crimp it down. And if you find when you're finished you still have a little bit of too much wire, you can go back through with your wire cutter and just trim it down a little bit more. And there you go. So I have it crimped, my crimp cover is on, and I still have a little bit of space for my bracelet to rotate around my wrist and to be on there nice and comfortable. And then before I finish it too, sometimes I put it on my wrist and just double check the length that I have to make sure it's long enough for my clasp as well as the ribbon. And a side note here really quick, sometimes when you have a thicker bracelet or multi-strand bracelet, you might need to add a little bit of extra length of wire in addition to, or jump rings, because the more strands you have, the thicker the bracelet, the more it's going to take up lengthwise. So then it might be too small on your wrist. So for example, you want it to sit comfortably, and you might find as you get to the end, because this is a thicker bracelet, it took up more space. So you might need like a little bit extra wire or a jump ring at the end so you know you have enough room. But okay, our first strand is done. So we're going to start our second strand, and then we will get to how we add ribbon. So for the second pattern, I'm starting off with the lavender rondelle and going up from there. And for this one, I used a spacer bead and a rondelle. And for this strand, I'm introducing this really fun melon-shaped bead. It's a really pretty pink and white color, and it has a nice little like golden shimmer on the outside, which ties into the gold color of the clasp, as well as the other beads, because some of the other beads have a hint of a gold sparkle. And so when you're wearing it, it has a really pretty gold shimmer on it, if you can kind of see there on camera. So it adds a nice little like summery shimmer look to it, which also matches the kind of shimmery look to the outside of this purple glass bead. So they kind of tie in together as well. I try to do like little hints of things to tie them all in together for this design, so everything complements each other, as well as adds new like little splashes of color, and they coordinate together really well. So for this one so far, I have our purple lavender rondelle, the pink melon, it's like a pinkish purple, the purple faceted glass, and now I'm transitioning to the coral flower bead. I just like this because it adds like a hint of the coral in there, which matches the ribbon too, because the ribbon just has this little bit of coral in there if you kind of catch it right there in the middle. So I thought I'll just add a splash of coral to kind of match it. And then since I'm transitioning from the pink to the green too, I'm going to add this rondelle again. It's just a real pleasant like light lavender color. And then I'm going to add green. So again, in between each bead for myself, I'm just using the daisy spacer bead to kind of break it up and also add a little texture to it. And again, in between the floral beads, I'm using the pumpkin one to just kind of get in the middle and separate out the floral bead. And I'm going to use a purple one on this one. And this flower bead too, it has the same kind of gold shimmery coating as the beads down here. So when you put them together, I hope this shows up on camera, they all have this pretty gold shimmery color on the outside. So they all intertwine and match. I just love how it all came out like that. And then again, if you're using the pink floral bead, it also has like a gold shimmery color on there. I hope that kind of comes up. You can kind of see it when I move the bead around. But if you're looking at it in person, they all tie in with this really pretty shimmery color. It's subtle, but they also color coordinate and match. So I thought, how cool is that? And then here's the green. It also has a nice little color on the outside too. And adding the blue. I love this color blue. It's like a really pretty like cornflower blue. And I just like how it adds a splash of blue color to the bracelet. And it's the exact same color blue almost as in the ribbon. And at the same time, they all kind of color match with the same like subtle like color wheel, I guess is what you might call it. So the colors all really balance each other out. Melon, okay. So I'm short one of the purple beads for this one, so I'm just going to jump right to the green. Actually, I'm going to get a different one. I'm just going to add, nope, I haven't. And I got that one on there. That's the fun thing about these beads. If you decide you want to move something around, they're all real versatile colors. So you can flip how you want your pattern to go. If you want to add an extra blue bead and swap another bead out, they all complement each other really well. So you can rotate your beads around and switch your pattern around to whatever you want to see more of, and they'll still blend really, really well and match. Okay, so I'm done with this strand, so I'm going to go ahead and finish it off. But before I do, I'm going to show you a mistake that can be easily made. So anytime I do a multi-strand, I make sure that my ends match up as exact as possible. That way, when they're on the wrist, I don't have one strand that's longer than another one, because you want them to sit on your wrist the same size. So by adding this bead, that's going to be too many. So I'm going to take that off and then lay these side by side and go, okay, these match top to where I'll be adding my crimp cover and everything. So, okay, this is where I want to be at lengthwise. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish this one. It's just another tip that I do when I'm measuring my bracelet as I'm finishing up, to make sure that everything is the same length. Because it's really easy to create one strand that's too much longer than the other one, and then when it's on your wrist, you're going to have one strand that's like way up here or hangs way down here, and the rest of it's here in the middle, and then you have to figure out, okay, now I have to figure out how I'm going to measure them again and how to get them to sit at the same size on my wrist. And when I first started making multi-strands, that was really easy to do that. Like, one would be longer than the other ones, or because sometimes the beads don't line up perfectly. If you have beads that are different sizes, you might have one that doesn't want to line up very well because they're just not the right length or measurement compared to the other ones. So when you're doing a pattern for multi-strand bracelets, you have to make sure that the beads are going to match and line up as much as possible for sizing, so that way when your strands end, the beads will line up. So if you use a larger bead, you'll want to have them finish off at the ends with the smaller bead. That way the length is the same. Okay, so I have these two strands finished. Next, we're going to cut our ribbon to have these all match. And when you use a ribbon, you need to have a larger jump ring at the end. And I'm using like a heavy gauge jump ring, and a 9 to a 10 millimeter jump ring is where you want to be at. And for starters, I'm going to open these, and I'm going to open these, and I'm going to add the 2 strands of my bracelet first, and then I'm going to close it here. And you want to add the strands first. That way when you tie your ribbon on, you don't have to open and close this, or you'll have everything on there secure, and then you can add your ribbon. And I'm going to do this side and add those. And the nice thing about wire guards is they will slide around your jump ring, and it won't wear down the wire. That's why I love wire guards. They will move around on your jump ring nicely, or if you don't use a jump ring, if you use something else, but they'll stay on there and they won't come through the crack because the jump ring provides that extra thickness, so the wire won't come through any openings. And also, they can rotate on the ring and not wear down the actual wire itself, which will shorten the life of your bracelet. So using this type of engineering, if that's what you want to call it, you'll have a longer life bracelet. Okay, so when I'm using the ribbon, you want it to be the same length as your beadwork, and you also need at least an extra inch on the end to tie it. So I start with the end that's been stitched. And you also want to make sure you're going the right direction. So when you add the strand, your knot needs to go down this way, the same direction as your beadwork. Otherwise, your knot's going to be up here, and the ribbon's going to want to come up and around a funky way, and you're going to have like a ribbon situation. So you want to tie your knot with everything this way. So you just want to go ahead and tie a knot with your ribbon, and then when you are tying it, I'm like holding my arms out in front of me, so it's like kind of funky. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure as you're tightening it, your knot goes down with your ribbon this direction. And you want to tie it tight. It does not come untied easily. Once you tie it and pull on it, this ribbon's going to stay. If you want to add glue to hold it more securely, you're more than welcome to do that. And if it moves around on the ring, that's fine, but it won't come undone just from wearing it naturally on your wrist. So then you want to bring it down to the other end and take your ribbon, and I've pre-cut this. So you just want to pull it through. And again, you want to have your knot tied to where it's going to go the direction of your beadwork. So you also want to pull it lengthwise like this. You want to have a little extra give, so that way it will rotate around with your beadwork and not be too taut. You don't want to tie this really tight because it's going to be up here with your beadwork like this, and it's not going to lay flat on your wrist. So you want to have everything, again, malleable, be able to move around your wrist as you're moving for the day. And you also want to have just a little bit of give, but not too much to where it's not like all over here while you're wearing your jewelry. So you just kind of want to pull it. And again, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to bring it down this way and tie my knot like this. That way, the direction of the knot is going the direction of my beadwork. Okay, like so. And then you just want to pull it tight, but just test as you're going how tight it is so you know that your ribbon is the same length you need it to be with everything else. And mine's good, so I'm going to tie it really tight. And again, my knot's going down towards my beadwork on both sides. And then you just take some fabric scissors and trim your end, and you are finished with that. So when you're adding ribbon to a bracelet, that is how you add ribbon to a bracelet. And here you go. And see how much that's so pretty to me. It complements each other really well with the color of the beads. And it just is super perfect. I love it. So next I'm going to go ahead and add the clasp, and then we're going to wire wrap our bell flowers, and then we're finished. And then you guys can buy what you want to make this project. And if you make this project, I would love it if you shared it on your social media and tagged artbeads.com. They're on Instagram and Facebook, and share with us what you made and be proud of yourself and demonstrate how gorgeous your projects are with their beads. We love to see what the customers make with our projects. Or you can tag me on it online as well. That would be awesome. So I'm just using a 6mm jump ring to attach the clasp. And I love this clasp. Again, it's a really pretty floral clasp. And I'm not sure what size it is. It's probably like 35mm, but the information for it is on, there you go. It's in that really cool white screen right there on the banner on the bottom. It'll give you all the details for it, and it does not tarnish. I've used this clasp on a few things, and it lasts forever. It's like really good quality metal. Here we go. And it's super comfortable to work with. Like some toggle clasps are hard to work with, like getting the bar or something through it. It's a wonderful clasp. Like it's one of my new favorites. And we're going to add that to the bottom. So now you have your bracelet finished. And we have the clasp and everything ready to go. If you want to stop here, you can. If you want to add dangles, you can. You don't have to do the bell flowers. You could wire wrap whatever you want and attach it to the base here. And next, like one idea I had was just putting a couple of the floral beads and wire wrapping it and having it as a dangle right there. And then you're good to go if you wanted to have it more simple. So I'm using some of the brass ball head pins. These guys, I love these brass ball head pins. They are my new obsession. I love them. And I'm just going to take some of these really cool glass flower beads and add it to a ball head pin. Scoot those over. Just like so. And then when I wire wrap, I'm just going to use my round nose pliers to hold it, my chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to take my wire here and rotate it around my round nose pliers, bring it back around, and go over the top a few times to have my loop just like that. And maybe you want to do a few more because you want to have that extra chunky look. I love wire wrapping. I think it is so much fun. And cut off excess wire. And then you just pinch it down nice and flat behind your loop like so. And you've got one of your dangles ready to go. So in my bracelet, I have 7 because I have 3 lined up on each side, and then I have the spare kind of at the bottom in the center. And I mixed up both colors. So I had 3 coral on one side and then the purple on the other side. And then I just chose a random one in the middle. So that way you have a splash of the coral and the purple coming out in the floral beads to add just a little bit more color that matches your ribbon. Like so. And then I joined them together with a 6mm jump ring, and I just did 1 flower on each side and separated them. I'll show you how to do that here in a second with the jump ring. Okay. So you just want to do this a few more times till you have whatever desired amount of bellflowers you want. If you want to have 6 or just 3, I'll do 1 more so I can demonstrate how I connect these. And thanks so much for joining me, everybody, today. I really appreciate it. It's so nice to have you here. Just go up and down. Sorry, when I move my hand out of the way, I'm putting the spare wire in my garbage can so I don't step on it later, because sometimes that happens. You snip your wire, it goes flying, you find it later with your foot, and you're like, oh, that did not feel good. Okay, so I've got my 6mm jump ring here, and so I'm doing 1 coral and 1 purple flower, and then I'm going to separate them with a ring in the middle. That way they can fall the right way. I don't want to have like one big cluster of flowers. I kind of want them to fall like they're a fountain, and I want them to lay flat coming this way. So I've got my 2 flowers on a ring, and I've got my 3rd one here, and I'm going to go in the middle of the 2 flowers from the previous one because I want them to be 1 flower on each side. And close them up like that. So that way when I'm looking down, they will lay like this. So anytime I'm making a dangle of any sort, I try to separate them in the center of the bead so that way they'll lay side by side. So you'll have more of a cascade look instead of just one big cluster of beads. And then for this particular one, I added 1 extra one by itself with a separate jump ring, again, in between the 2 other ones. So I just had kind of like 1 extra tail at the bottom. So for this one, they kind of cascade down like this a little bit. And then when I'm all finished, I just go to the very top, add another ring, and I will attach it to the front of my toggle like this, where it will lay flat. I used to put them on the stem of my toggle, and I just figured out over the years it's kind of irritating because when you go to clasp it, you have all these beads in the way. So it's easier if you add them by the top, because you have this space between the top of the toggle and you have the space here without competing with trying to get the beads and the bar in. So then here you go, and you just slide everything through and you're finished, and you have a beautiful beaded bracelet. I mean, look how colorful and pretty it is. I just love these colors. And for fun projects, I had made this pair of earrings to go with it to match out of spare beads from the Strand. And I had used the purple shiny translucent beads. and some bead caps. And then I used additional flower beads from the Strand and the daisy spacer beads to make a pair of earrings to match. That way you have a matching bracelet and earring set. I think it's so pretty. I think it's great for the summer season. So thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. It was wonderful having you here. Thanks for hanging out with me. I look forward to seeing your project in the future. Hopefully you'll make this beautiful bracelet and share it with all of us. And again, if you want to change up the colors, there's different colors, but you can use the same design style to create whatever you want for your own ribbon bracelet. And thank you so much for watching today and hanging out with me. You can find us online at artbeads.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or anybody on the Art Beads team. And have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your